We have a wild Texans trade update, and it involves the receiving core. The Texans drafted 2 Iowa State wide receivers, and you start to think to yourself, is there not enough room for everyone on this roster? Does that mean potentially trading some guys? Does it mean demoting them to the practice squad? You're going to have to cut down this roster, and some analysts believe that it could be a trade for a younger wide receiver in John Metchie. So, Texans fans, get your popcorn ready. Texans Digest, 83% of you are not subscribed. If you would, hit that sub button. We've been posting Texans news all off season and trying to get ready for this season. Let me know how excited you are for this Texans team. It's going to be a lot of fun for this upcoming season. But John Metchie is projected to potentially be traded for the Texans. There's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. If you look at the depth chart right now, there are a lot of names. Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, 2 rookies. Justin Watson and Braxton Berrios signed in the offseason. Xavier Hutchinson, John Metchie, do they make the roster? We've been talking about it. Tank Dell will 100% be, if he's not on injured reserve, he's definitely going to stay on the team. So that is going to fill a spot. But you have your 3 starters in Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, definitely. Christian Kirk's another name. And then you have Justin Watson and Braxton Berrios as 6. Those are guys that you signed. So it's going to be a tough place here for John Metchie. But the other question I have is, what do you think they can get for him? Seriously, let me know in the comments, because do you trade a receiver for a 6th-round pick, or do you just leave him on the team at that point? Because honestly, there might not be much value in trading Metchie instead of just cutting him. I mean, yeah, getting a 6th is better than releasing him, but it seems like he'll be the 5th or 6th receiver on this team ahead of Xavier Hutchinson. But, I mean, Hutchinson and Metchie are the 2 kind of odd names out, other than Johnny Johnson and Jared Wayne III. So Jared Wayne will probably be demoted to the practice squad like he was most of last season. Now, as far as the potential trade interest goes, I think this idea is actually kind of nice, right? You have John Metchie and Dameon Pierce. A couple of people we don't know will be on the team in their future. It's questionable. They drafted Woody Marks. They drafted 2 receivers. Metchie and Pierce, and a 6th for a team's 3rd-round pick in 2026. Unlikely to happen, but it's a decent idea. Maybe a 4th-round pick. You exchange 6th for 4th. That's not the worst idea in the world. But you have to understand that John Metchie's trade value was kind of last year. This was last year. The Eagles are expected to revisit trade talks for Texans receiver John Metchie III. And he had a decent 2023 coming back off the leukemia, and he made a miraculous comeback. I mean, credit to him getting back on the field. That's a scary thing to come back from in any life situation. So love John Metchie as a person, but there's too many mouths to feed for the Texans, and I just don't see the point of trading him. I know he's going to be a backup for the team, but I feel like you might as well just leave him instead of just throwing him out for a 7th-round pick, a 6th-round pick, because I don't think there's teams that are as interested in being a 3rd or a 4th, because Metchie proved last year that he wasn't necessarily ready to take a step up, and that was the thing. So in the 2 seasons that he had with the Texans, he's been on the field mostly last year trying to prove himself with all the injuries the Texans had. Metchie, in the Chargers game, the first playoff game, first snap for the Texans, it might have been the 2nd off of a run, but the first pass play of the game, pass to Metchie, he fumbled. And he was the number 2 in that system with Tank Dell out to injury, so maybe he works better as a 3, but I could see maybe the Dolphins potentially taking a chance on him. This was a tweet from last year. It was crazy to me the large amount of people that wanted Metchie cut, and even crazier how they're saying to trade him. Now it's looking more and more far-fetched to trade Metchie, because I don't know if any teams are going to be interested. The Eagles, maybe they got a 3rd guy though, and looking at the Texans roster, he might just play as the number 4 or 5, right? You have Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll ahead of him. That's 4 names. Tank Dell's on the injured list. Justin Watson, Braxton Berrios, that's 6. So do you bring in Metchie as the last guy, as the 7th in the receiving room, and then demote Hutchinson and Wayne and Johnny Johnson to the practice squad, Xavier Johnson, all those guys? it's a question that you got to address. And they're going to trim down the wide receiver room. So it's just a matter of what do they do? Do they trade John Metchie? I don't think Nick Caserio has any plans to move on from Metchie, but it is a decent idea. It could potentially happen, but it's a matter of, again, what can you get for him for the amount of value that he has, and what team is willing to just bring him on the roster? I feel like John Metchie and Jameson Williams could go better together in terms of they're both college. They went to the same college, Alabama, both teammates. So, again, I love John Metchie. I loved where he was drafted. He had that unfortunate leukemia incident, which he overcame. He came back in 2023, played a good season. 2024, he got more reps, just wasn't able to shine. And that's the reason the Texans drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel to kind of just stack the receiving core. And I don't think they trade Metchie because they may need him, right? The amount of injuries they had last year, Nick Caserio is just getting as much depth as possible, including bringing in veterans like Justin Watson and Braxton Berrios. So at this point in time, I don't hate the idea that it could definitely potentially happen, but I don't know if this is the thing that makes the most sense, right? If Metchie's going to be demoted to the practice squad or they're going to trade him, they're probably going to trade him. Because if they have to cut him and take a chance on signing him to the practice squad, you know a team's going to beat you to that signing if you do cut Metchie. But I don't feel like Metchie's going to get cut. I feel like he's going to be that last name in the wide receiver room. Hutchinson might get cut. It's going to be a tough race here with what we're looking at here for this wide receiver room. So, again, a lot of names and crazy situations in terms of trade updates. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the wide receiver room because I'm a big fan of it. I love John Metchie and what he tried to do last season. I just feel like maybe another team can give him another shot. Just the Texans are moving on. Metchie couldn't be that X factor the team needed last year, and they just need Stroud to trust some guys and. They drafted a couple, Noel and Higgins. So it's a tough situation, but overall, looking at it from a perspective of an outsider and everything of that nature, it really doesn't make the worst sense in the world to trade Metchie. But even if it's for a 6th-round pick, it's like, what's the point of having him as that 5th option as a depth piece or just leaving him and trading him for a 6th-round pick? And I don't even know what team would want to take him. Like, there's rumors the Eagles had interest last season. Maybe the Lions, like I said. The Dolphins, do they even potentially consider that? I mean, maybe. It's just there's a lot of question marks as to if there's even any trade interest for Metchie because a lot of the interest was, again, 2024 of last season in like August, and that was when the trade rumors were kind of brewing. And then that was mainly because Metchie was not going to start for the Texans, and they knew that there was some potential there. He never really got to show his full. So that was where I feel like your trade value was at the peak for Metchie was last season, and now it's just kind of rambled into he didn't have the best season last year. Again, as the number 2, probably not the position that he wanted to be at. I feel like he probably could have been better as a slot guy. But again, he's had opportunities at both spots in terms of the X and Y receiver and the Z. So again, I'm not going to say that he deserves another chance, but at the same time, maybe he works in a different system. But maybe he works even better as the Texans' 4th or 5th guy. Say Kirk gets hurt. Like Kirk is known to have injuries on the team, so that's where you consider keeping him because you don't know what's going to happen throughout the season. So I feel like there's no benefit to trading Metchie. You definitely want to consider it because you have 4 running backs. You have a ton of wide receivers you probably are going to cut and get rid of and narrow that roster down to the 53-man roster. But again, a lot to look forward to for the Texans' upcoming season. I'm not too concerned if they trade Metchie, if they cut him, because he's a depth piece. I love him for what he has had, the story that he's overcome, but it's more likely that he stays on the roster than not. And that's just my thoughts on everything. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's definitely a tough situation as to if they do move on. But again, I don't think it affects the receiving core all that drastically. If the Texans couldn't get a 3rd for Pierce and Metchie and give up a 5th or a 6th, I think that's honestly not a terrible trade. But what team is going to want that, right? Maybe the Panthers, and they have him sit behind Adam Thielen, who's probably on the waning end of his career, and maybe Pierce sits behind Hubbard. I don't know, but there's still a lot that can happen. And honestly, I'm just looking forward to this season. You have trade rumors now about Metchie, and although it makes sense, I don't think they do it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. This has been John Metchie potentially being traded. We'll see what happens, but a big offseason the Texans had. The draft was great, and we're looking forward to a good season. The Texans are being underrated right now. Last year, they kind of got all this hype as a top 10 team, and now I feel like the Texans are flying way under the radar. The schedule's going to be difficult. We're going to talk about it tomorrow night when it drops. But thank you guys so much for watching. Again, hit that sub button if you're new. Stay up to date with all Texans news. Can't wait for the season. Appreciate everyone watching. Comment down below, and we'll see you in the next video. It's been Mike Zanetti, Texans Digest. Thanks for watching.